Hey, hey, folks. Ben here. I've invited Brian Niemeier, and hopefully he'll show up soon. Unfortunately, last week we experienced some uh, technical issues. Holy man. Gnostic God machines. Ooh. No Gnosticism here. Gnosticism? There we go. No Gnosticism here, friendo. And hopefully he'll join me. I've sent him the links. But otherwise, I'm going to talk about Gundams and other things like that. I'm a good Trinitarian boy. Maybe not a Trinity boy. There we go. That's how we do it. It's important, you see. Uh, sure, it's not important at all. Let's see here. I'm going to talk about Brian Niemeier's new book, Coalition Year 40. It's links down below. It's a great time, just a great book in general. Honestly, it's quite enjoyable. Oh, that God machine. Oh, it's just enjoyable in general. Let's read you the blurb real quick. They made him necessary. He'll make them pay. Earth groans under the yoke of the system's over-terrestrial coalition. Sox enjoy privileged status while grounders languish as second-class citizens. Student Thomas Arthur Dormio leads the Brussels Service Academy's History Club in front of a dissident front for a dissident grounder's cell. The Human Liberation Organization (HLO) conducts a campaign of blackmail, sabotage, and terrorism to free Earth from the Sox. En route to make contact with the HLO, Second Lieutenant Theodore Red arrives in orbit over Western Europe. Before he starts the next phase of the resistance on Earth, Red has a man to kill. And it's pretty exciting. Brian Niemeier just goes from strength to strength, having greater and more exciting setups each time they uh, show up in a book. It's great. Um, there's enough of a jump here, so it feels like it's its own thing from Combat Frame Exceed, and it delves into enough of the history to make it really worthwhile. You get to see what happened to some fan favorite characters, though I shan't spoil it for you here. Um, honestly, like it's one of those things where it's like, finally, a Gundam you can actually like read. Oftentimes they're kind of a little bit just not there. Like they kind of don't have that weight you want them to have. Like like one of the things that the original Godzilla, the original like the not the original Godzilla, yeah, the original Godzilla, but like the Godzilla that uh, is Ferris Bueller's Godzilla's Day Out, the one with Matthew Broderick, did right is that Godzilla had weight and he knocked things around and he charged through things and he even like was able to hide from people and things and get get the drop on their enemies, its enemies. And even though some of the things were patently ridiculous about that film, they did get the weight right for Godzilla. He felt huge. Um, he felt big. He felt like, you felt the rumble. And then there's the slowness of him coming into the dock. A lot of places they don't have it. Like this is it's the same sort of thing with tanks and other mechas. Um, Richard Fox's Terran Armor Corps does it kind of well sometimes, but also sometimes doesn't really hit it. Like there's this one scene where there's this grueling fight with these giant centaur aliens, and then like one of the dudes like tucks and rolls out of a hole in the wall to get the drop on the hero, and it just kind of went like really fast. And it's like, sure, I absolutely believe that this guy who's like the best a mecha swordsman in the world could stomp this dude, but it still didn't have. It wasn't a weighty scene until a few paragraphs onward, where his the hero's mech falls apart, and it's just sort of, he's just sort of there. Um, a lot of things kind of just sort of lack it. Like I've kept this up just to talk about it. So you've heard combat frame exceed a coalition year 40s blurb. Now let's look at a different blurb. Last Marines by Lawrence and Oliver. It's got a pretty generic cover, which I don't really think much of. Um, it's okay. Like it's just not exciting. I'll put the link in the chat in case you're interested in checking it out yourself. But the blurb is actually terrible. Western mech tend to be clunky, chunky boys that they are, but hey, chunky. Though one should always slip down to one's ideal weight. So it says, having been replaced by robots and drones, veterans Ben Corbin and Sam Garrett go into business for themselves, towing derelict vessels and space junk out of the shipping lanes around Mars. Business was good, but a couple of malfunctioning service robots force them to return to Earth for replacements. Aliens attack the freighter that they book passage on, slaughtering and feeding on the crew and passengers. Only Corbin and Garrett manage to hold their own. Now I'm going to stop right here. There's more. There's way more. But if he stopped it right here, he would have had a pretty good description of what his book is and what it could be. Now I haven't read this book. I don't know how good it is. I wasn't impressed by the blurb that Amazon gave. It's very generic. The blurb is way too long, Willie Rim. Absolutely. So then if we had stopped it at where I put it until Corbin and Garrett managed to hold their own, it would have been pretty good. But then it says until they could hide in stasis pods 200 years later. Now, I don't know why, like all of a sudden, like the diction and grammar changes, whether someone forced them to do it. A lot of writers don't kind of know when to quit. I know that, like, my Sheik of Mars blurb, which is kind of terrible, does is kind of just not there, and it went through so many different things. But the thing is, I couldn't really think of a better one. But it's also my blurb is grammatically correct. 200 years later. Code word diverse in the coding. Oh yes. Thing about diversity, like I worry about the word diversity more than I do the word diverse, because a lot of writers have Asperger's and stuff like that, so they have less. How do I want to put this? They don't really think through their words as well as they should. I would never use diverse as a word in my blurb under any circumstances. Yeah, so how it is. 200 years later, no comma, no period. Earth inner colonies, comma, governed by the Commonwealth of Nations, are at war with Commonwealth. What was the one before the United Nations? League of Nations. For some reason, whatever. Commonwealth of Nations are at a war with a race of nation aliens known as the 19th. Terrible name. Not with the Gar-Ray-G, who had attacked Corbin so many years past. That war had been fought and the humans lost. Yep, League of Nations. Some reason, like, I've read so many science fiction stuff that sometimes it blurs, and I keep thinking that the one before the United Nations is the Commonwealth or something ridiculous like that. It's like, wait a minute. It's like, that's not coming back. Anyway, that war had been fought and the humans lost. The 19th is a new alien threat whose origins and motives are unknown. I have no idea why the plot's taking this regard. What information humans have on this new enemy comes from an uneasy reliance with the GRJ, who have been fighting an even longer war with the 19th. So long ago, blah, 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 history has been forgotten. They are to be ambassadors serving at the pleasure of the same aliens who attack them. That attacked them. Thrust into a new age of engineers, soldiers, interplanetary politics, and self-aware robots, Corbin has to quickly decide who he's going to trust as he journeys back to Mars colony. But his search for the truth may come at the cost of his life, and the fate of the Commonwealth may rest on his decision. Warning, if you don't like space battles, robots, Cyborgs, no way. Space battle cyborgs, diverse flawed characters, aliens, AIs, mechs, robots are bad. Language this book may not be for you. Never have anything like this. It's cheesy as all hell. So let's break this down. So let's stop. Let's see. The opening, the original idea for the story is really good. You have this huge cruise liner going between Earth and Mars. Aliens attack. You're one of two space marines and apparently a robot or something, and you have to fight your way through to like the escape pods or something. That is a great story. Why are you ruining it going for what's essentially a Galaxy's Edge or a Ember War style thing? Like, we don't need you to jump ahead 200 years in this book. It would have been better for the whole book to just be all kinds of interesting things Corbin and Garrett could do fighting the GRJ. But they're not doing that. We don't, like, unless this happens over the course of like 75% of the book, we will not have a good feeling for who the GRJ are. We will not understand what their threat is to humanity, how any of this is going to work. We don't feel anything for it. Um, like, it's one of those things where, like, the more time you give something as a writer, the weightier this thing will become in the reader's minds. For example, I'm reading a book called Elixir, except it doesn't have any vowels except for the first one, I think. It's like ELXR. Just a second. It's okay. It is just okay. Is it? I mean, book. It is just okay. The thing about it, though, is that it kind of moves too fast. So I'm like 25% into the book, right? And then it comes to a point where where I'm like, they're starting to unravel the mystery of the derelict ship. We already know a lot about it, but the thing is that one, the like you can reveal some things that are pretty fast, but there still have to be some things to stand up against them. The author didn't have anything in the ship that was really against them, so he decided to crash the ship into a planet, which he's already setting up in the prologue some sort of ninja huntress chick who I don't care about and can't be bothered to care about. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, Master, blah, blah, Shadowlands, blah, dangerous. Oh, I can handle it. Dangerous, blah, Shadowlands. Um, something something father, something something mother. Um, Father might be the head of the ninjas. It's one of those things where I can't be bothered to care. I do have, you know, problems with a lot of this stuff because honestly I don't find motivations or characters, um, you know, yeah, right. Characters or motivations of people to really grab me, as much as it does other people. Like, I am separate from the book I am reading. I am always separate. I'm separate even from my own body, in the sense that I understand where that my soul is not nerve by nerve connected the same way my mind is, and my mind only is directed by the powers of my soul, which sounds like utter madness, but it's literally how our mind body soul connection works. Um, Without my body, my soul just fritters away back up to heaven, or to heaven from wherever it came from. That's how it works. Holy Ram says, on one hand, I want the author to bring me into this world. On the other hand, I hate cabbage head reader surrogates. Yes. Then, like you bring it up with my own disconnection from whatever I'm reading, it sort of creates an intolerance for stupidity. Um, like these two guys figuring out, check it, Bradford. What? Oh, it's E3. The body is more than raiment. Yeah, it's true, but at the same time, I tend to describe the body as a flesh mecha. So, you know, Hey, Bradford. By the way, Bradford, while you're here, I saw your book, Star Knight Saga, finally got released. I shared it a couple times, and you need to get into contact with me so we can do another live stream. You know what I mean? Brian Niemeier's not here, but I'm still kind of talking about his book. Um, the thing about like the connection between me and the characters is that if characters like the Elixir novel that I'm reading had a pretty great start. You have these boys in a derelict ship. Um, Absolutely. Just so you know, Bradford, I'm pretty much taken until the end of June. But that's okay. I'm taking a break next week because my favorite band. Well, I might not. Actually, if you can do, no, I shouldn't. I have to get to the concert. But afterwards, we can certainly do it. Like I like things like Galaxy's Edge, Star Knight Saga, uh, Combat Frame Exceed, far more than I do a lot of stuff that put like characters into it. I like my characters to have definition to them. I like them to have will. I want them to be pushing me along like a roller coaster ride. Like one of the things I'm going to have to rework with a novel I'm writing, Jasper Silver, is that my character Jasper's very passive. Now, keep in mind, this is a character flaw of his. I want him to be the type of guy um, who kind of just takes things and then like rips himself out of the spikes that somebody's put him on or something like that. He just kind of gets back up and keeps moving. But at the same time, I'm not doing it right. I need to balance it out so that he has character for readers to latch on to. He's slightly numb because his parents got murdered. Like he's depressed. He's having a hard time with all the changes in his life. Being turned into a swarm of nanotechnology. That doesn't excuse him from not having things that I need to call back to towards the end of the story. And I think I hit the ending just right. It's just that middle bit. I need to keep the push on with things that like have no real defined characters or whose characters are just kind of they're kind of just all over the place, or they're suddenly like having a third character interact with them or a fourth character. It doesn't really work out with Elixir. We're going to be introduced to the female character who I don't care about. Shoved a lot of characterization into a prologue. I don't think that counts. Maybe if we were watching her move along at the same time as the boys were examining the derelict ship, maybe that would be more interesting, but it's not the case. Instead, we have 20% of the book in the derelict ship, and then the derelict ship is going to crash, and then we have a kind of very disassociated crash sequence that doesn't really work. Now, compare this to Combat Frame Exceed. The first one was whew, it went all over the place. You had all kinds of crazy fights. You had fights under the sea. You had fights in the air. You had one-sided fights on both sides. You had, you know, uh, you had you had one-sided fights on both sides. You had characters duking it out. They had will and motivation. And the thing about Combat Coalition Year 40 is I think he actually does it better um, in Coalition Year 40 than he has any other time, than he has in Combat Frame Exceed. Theodore Red and Thomas Dormio are both like excellent characters. They're both motivated and they both have their conflicts. Thomas Dormio is motivated to save Mars. Sorry, not Thomas Dormio. Theodore Red is motivated to save Mars. Thomas Dormio just wants revenge and wants to wipe them out. But then there's characters like Tesla Browning, who's betraying everyone, or characters like Morley Klein, who's autodidact sort of character. But she herself tries to kill off some of the characters. Because that character led to her parents being murdered, and it's like, yes, completely logical. Even her revenge. um Then we have characters like Foss Hayden, who doesn't really have a great will, but you know what? He kind of does want the German state to come back. That Todd Ritter was going for before he had an asteroid dropped on him or something, which is a good way to go. Just going to put it out there. If you live the type of life that makes your enemies want to drop asteroids on you, you're doing it right. Quote me. Let's see there. And then there's Ivan Eckhart, who's sort of similar to Faust Hayden, but he has an actual claim in blood. And that means a lot. That means a lot of difference between like someone like Faust, who doesn't really have blood in it, and Ivan Eckhart, who does. So you get similar characters, but they're all different in just the right ways. And you have characters like Maritza, who has revenge, and the villain Malov Strauss, who just steals the show every scene he's in, not because he's crazy or anything like that, but because he just knows how to handle himself, and because you see the guy and he hits all the right points. The heroes escape by the skin of their teeth because Malov Strauss is a competent man. Because he's a competent man, it works out. But he's not so confident that you think that, oh, he's thought of everything. No, he misses things all the time, but he's still such a threat. And he's got various like lieutenant characters. Let me see if I can find one of them. Who's the guy? Fraser. Like Fraser, great combat, great character, good stuff. And Simon Trent, who's kind of like the innocent character, going through a lot of this stuff and, getting blood on his hand for the first time and all that jazz. Like, it all hits it just right. The melting pot mixes just right so that when it's time for things to split up or break or change up, Brian Niemeier is able to guide it through and into the sort of the new book that's going to come out later, Combat Frame XE Coalition Year 40 Book 2, whatever he's going to call that. And I will be, of course, supporting his Indiegogo campaign. Let's see here. Tall Order, but in Hard Magic, Larry portrays a story character very well. Absolutely. So Hard Magic is actually a really great book. My problem is that I didn't really feel for the villain. The chairman was a great villain, but they killed him. And then they revealed this other villain who's showing up. And it's like, I've never been a big fan of, yes, all these horrible things was to defeat X. Wait, you couldn't like get people to want to do it? No, we had to rape, murder, and pillage our way through. Good on you. It's like that guy's going to hell, but it's like he didn't have to. And actually, like, one of the first reviews I ever did that got me around was for Vox Day's blog, where I reviewed Hard Magic for it, and he said, I disagree with it. I felt I was fine with the big villain reveal, but whatever. And that's of course perfectly acceptable. To each his own, and that sort of thing. Like, it's one of those things where, if there's a turn of phrase where a greater villain is revealed, it's one of those things that either hits or doesn't. Now, I'm not going to spoil too much, but there is that sort of event in Coalition Year 40. I am going to do a spoilerific review later and post it to this channel probably. I have my own channel, Reading Rainbow Emperor, but I'm going to eventually just merge it with this one. I'm going to try and do like 5 videos a week in a live stream. One review. Most of them off the cuff readings. I'm going to read through Sheik of Mars, and then for other things that may not review it, but I think I need a better microphone or whatever. Anyway, so you get a thing where you reveal a greater villain, or there's something that goes on. But the thing is, Brian Niemeier has hinted at his greater villain from book 1. He didn't reveal it in book 1 like Larry Correa did. And again, Hard Magic is still a great book. Like, this is me complaining about the temperature of a cold soup. It's not quite as icy as I like it. I've got hard copies in my library. I liked it. Then he's got his own shelf, but he shares it with Kursova. There's 2 new Kursovas out there, by the way, and I'm looking forward to it. I need to get in touch with Kursova and get a live stream with them too. So we get the villain reveal. We get a whole bunch of stuff is revealed. We still don't quite know what's going on with the villains in this series, because there's some sort of will thing that goes on, and it's like, yes, this character's still alive even though they're dead. And it's like, ooh, what was in the needle at the end of book 1? What was it? So on and so forth. I do consider it a pity that certain characters and ideas just weren't there like I felt they should be. Like I was a big fan of what was their name? Zeklov. I was a big fan of the Zeklov corporations. They built like cathedral-like Mecca and all kinds of specialty goods. Like it's great. I kind of wish they did more with them, but you know what? That's a minor gripe. You have to have a fast pace in this sort of book. Prefer Grim Noir to the Monster Hunter. Legion and Alpha were delightful. I'm a big fan of Nemesis. I actually bought a hardcover version of it and had Larry sign it. I actually also have his House of Assassins and Son of the Black Lord, Sword signed as well. Siege was good. Siege was okay, but it was merely okay. It was a lot of fun. But Nemesis still stands on the top for me. I also like certain scenes in the Grim Noir series. The one where the guy casts a lightning bolt so strong it ends a drought was an absolutely amazing and weighty scene that I think he hit it just right. There's also one where he squishes people through mobsters through a building or whatever. It's good stuff. Larry Correa just does action scenes so well. But I kind of do want to see his take on the Gundam stuff. But he's a gun nut, and it requires a certain level of, shall we say, subtlety? It's a subtle. I freaked out some people in a science fiction forum about asking whether time was directly connected to entropy. And like this one guy's taking it way too seriously because he's like, well, entropy goes down over time. But I'm like, but you're saying that it's directly connected to how nothing is close together. So it's all just a closed system connected by voids. Yes, but it's not the same. Okay. And the thing is that like this stuff's better than most of the Gundam series I've watched. Like the Combat Frame Axie, it's like I want there to be Gundam stuff, and I'm going to be putting it in my Jasper Silver series whenever I have the balls to ride it out properly. I've got this great scene about how this so in the end of the first book, the AIs who manage the space elevators basically delayed a dude so that Jasper could escape. Well, they have to pass through a military training thing, so I'm going to use that excuse to introduce mech fighting to it. There's going to be all kinds. Like there's going to be types that fight physically. There's going to be types that fight from range. I'm going to have like Medusa types that can go into gas giants. It's going to be real insane. But right now, we don't have that many. And honestly, a lot of people are saying Terran Armor Corps is as good or better than Ember Wars, and I'm one of those to agree. We have the benefit of seeing both the best and the worst Gundam series, so when we roll out our own, we know what to keep and to avoid. Out of curiosity, guys, if you're in the chat, what's your what do you think is the best and worst Gundam series? Just sort of put it out there. I know Iron Blooded Orphans is probably my top thing, and I never really liked Gundam 00 too much. So there. But Power Armor in the Grim Noir, it was like magical power armor. Monster Hunter, gun exoskeleton. Oh, yes. Oh, please. I'm hoping he's building up to it because that one demon that serves the main villain, is a little bit tough. Is just putting it out there. Um, right now, the only three series worth mentioning for like um, the only really series that I've seen that do any sort of what's the word I want uh, like mecha very well is things like Coalition Year 40, Star Knight Saga, and Terran Armor Corps. I've never really seen it done pretty great, such that they come into my collection. Um, remember, like mecha are basically knights in armor. Like it shouldn't be hard. It just doesn't show up like it should. Like they have a little bit in Dreadnought by Sherry Priest, but it shows up as a set piece rather than a thing. Um, it's quite interesting. Gundams itself didn't come together to Zeta. Original series still had some dissonant super robot elements that didn't zip through. You see, like the way I view it, the way I'm sort of looking at it right now, is that like in the series that have come out modernly, Gundam is almost certainly Combat Frame XC. Terran Armor Corps is kind of like a mix. I've seen some of the stuff that Mark Wandry and the other guys do, Tom Kratman, but I'm not really impressed by it because it's just pure military science fiction rather than anything interesting. And then Star Knight Saga is a little bit more super robot than Gundam, if you'll pardon me, Mr. Walker. Um, not that I'm saying it's any less awesome, but it is more in that flavor from what I've seen. Then there's things like Galaxy's Edge, which tease us with mech on mech action and then never delivers. But that's okay. That's all right. It's okay. I'll forgive them once they actually do it. Gundam Unicorn, best series franchise, followed by Thunderbolt. Oh, okay. Okay. Is Thunderbolt the one with all the jazz? I feel like it is. Iron Blooded Orphans is also quite excellent. Unicorn, Unicorn. I watched it as it was coming out, and I'm just kind of like a either into it. They also are redoing the Gundam original series, like the OG origin stories. Yes, John Thunderbolt has the jazz. Um, and he says Star Knight by design is meant to straddle the real and super robot divide, and then you hit it. Good job. I'm always pleased to hear an author like actually hit what they're trying to do, at least in my opinion. Um, right. So, see, what was I talking? There's a lot of stuff out there that just kind of like I don't want to read it. But fortunately, I am in a circle of stuff I do want to read. Then there's things like Winter's, like for some reason in Star Knight Saga, I don't know why they think this, but like 4 out of the 6. No, wait, excuse me. Hold on a second. 1, 2, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to count 6. So 6 out of the 10 books that are being advertised, sponsored products related to this item, are like fantasy or survival related. Then there's Ghost of Argus, Shockwave, Veil Rising, and Tusk. Um, that's a song, which are kind of all over the place. Actually, Ghost of Argus sounds interesting. You awaken alone with a small ship, no memory of who you are, explore the starship. I know Bradford Walker just came in, but I was basically complaining that Elixir doesn't have enough exploring the starship. And also, it doesn't have enough description. Feeling it later, but whatever. I don't know what anything looks like. It's just a derelict ship. Oh, you're right. That is exactly how it looks. Anyway, sorry. Then there's Star Wars meets Big Bang Theory, and they lost me at Big Bang Theory for Shockwave, just because Big Bang Theory isn't funny. It isn't funny. It's just references, and it's like it's maybe funnier than Seinfeld, which I've never found funny to begin with. Um, but whatever. It's like it's one of those things. The test of whether something's funny is if it survives outside of the laugh track. Then it's Veil Rising, Book One of the Stargate Saga by Brandon Ellis. Admiral's Bird flees attack. He starts uncovering a plot to erase all of humanity. In his last remaining days, can he stop them? Interesting, fantastic. I don't want to read it, but it's an interesting thing. Let's see if he reads it. Oh no, that was just the advertisement blurb. They think they are alone. They are mistaken. Now they face annihilation. Fleet Admiral James Byrd, overworked and underpaid. That's not bad. A vacation is all he wanted. It only lasts 5 minutes and 11 seconds. That's also very good. When his fleet is attacked by an unknown enemy, Admiral Byrd does everything in his power to prevent genocide. And this is okay. Like, it's a really big ramp from, like, attacked by an unknown enemy to genocide. Big problem. He's the enemy's number one target, and it's not because he's the leader of the Star Guild. Now, that last two lines are actually pretty good as well. BBT is disturbed, distilled cringe. Yeah. But like taking a look at the ghost of Argus, you awaken from a deep sleep to find yourself in a small room with no memory of who you are. You're on a starship far larger than any of you encountered before, dwarfed the largest mega city. Despite the ship's incredible size, you're utterly alone, sole occupant. Why? Answers lie in the ghost of Argus. And I guess there's some characters and like kind of a universe here. But honestly, if he sticks to it, that sounds really interesting. You know, in comparison to things like Elixir and The Last Marine, which is utter nonsense and goes too far too fast with everything. Um, you know, so I don't know what advertisement's going on here. If we compare it to sponsored products related to this item, Combat Frame Exceed, it's okay, I'll forgive it. Then we have, let's see here, science fiction, kind of fantasy. Hey, this ain't so bad. Like it's not as bad as Star Knight Saga, I guess. Just one of them seems to be no, no. It's planetary romance. Okay, swirled, swirled. What? Sorry. It's SWORLD. I love the epic world building. Malik, Janae Palier, solar system, highly unusual distress, all sources unknown. No ship's ever been out that far. Good start. Malik and his team discover an alien vessel, mysterious cargo, marooned on the planet, unexplored planet Sorld. So the problem with this is that the planet's name is hard. Like unless it is like Sorld, it doesn't really do it for me as far as planet names, just because it's hard to say, and it's the title of the book too. No Way Home. They begin a journey of discovery into a rich and vibrant world with new life forms and intelligent spirits, dark mysteries, perilous danger. Ancient race has turned to violence and aggression, plunged into a quest for answers and into bloodshed. Malice must solve the enigmas of Swirled or perish. The biggest flaw in this, and I still kind of want to read it, so I'll maybe bookmark it, is the fact that Sorrel is a hard to pronounce name. And in Bradford Walker, I do try to avoid hard to pronounce names and labels. Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't like, so let's see here. I'm just going to type this in chat. Sheik of Mars. Sheik is a hard word. Planet naming, space Latin or space Greek, whatever makes sense in the universe. Though I prefer Latin to Greek in all cases, but I'm also not a Greek. So anyway, so my basic rule of thumb is that Sheik of Mars, Sheik is only acceptable because it is short, it is fast, and it's kind of one of those things that's kind of fun to say. Chic. It's very chic. It's like CHIC, which is a fashion thing. There's all kinds sorts of things that you can do with it. It's 5 letters. It doesn't have any strange pronunciations, and it doesn't screw with any rules. Anyone who's heard it once will remember it. Sword is too hard. It makes things like Combat Frame Exceed at Coalition Year 40 a much more palatable thing to say. It's like I don't have to think about it. You don't have to think about Sheik of Mars, and even if you don't recognize Sheik, you recognize of Mars. I am directly referencing Princess of Mars. Therefore, there is anyone who's read any amount of sci-fi and has taste, they'll be like, "Ooh, Mars." There's also something like the Dire Planet series, which also does the same sort of thing, except instead of saying of Mars or whatever, it's just Dire Planet. Other good ones: The High House, The Adventures of Conan, and I'm just pulling things out from what I can see. Count of Monte Cristo, Galaxy's Edge, and then you have like Legionnaire. Excuse me. Kill Team, or Requiem for Medusa. That's a complex title, but it is excellent. Requiem for Medusa. It hits it just right, and it is pleasant to say. Ultimately, it just works out. Like if you just honestly, I need to figure out. What I'll probably do is have each title for a Jasper Silver book not be like Jasper Silver Escape from Earth. It'll be like Jasper Silver Book 1 Escape from Earth, just because it's going to be a different sort of modification. So if you say, I like that book Escape from Earth, it hits it just right. But then if it's like something like some of these other ones, nope. There we go. 1799 Planetfall Earth Alien Incursion. It's a little bit of a question of what do you mean by 1799? Was a Symbiont Wars Book 1, 1799 Gregorian calendar. Does seeds fall from space? It's one of those things where it's like, I see what you're going for, but it's like I'm hoping it's like as good as some of the other stuff like 1692 or whatever it's called, which is about those people from like West Virginia being thrown into the past. But that was written by historical writers who really hit it off. Also, I just don't like the cover art. It's like it's weird. It's glary in all the wrong ways, and it's like clearly CGI, which is in stark contrast the excellent cover of Combat Frame Exceed Coalition Year 40, which shows off 2 of the Gundams there. There's also 2 on the back cover as well, and you get to see what they kind of look like, and it's pretty good. A lot of fun, honestly, to look at those things. And he handles their transformations and sort of designs pretty excellently. You never think like, that doesn't seem right for a lot of this stuff. The only thing I'll say is, and it's probably because you just can't put something super long on it. The first guys, if you're checking it out with me, the first guy's canon seems shorter than it is in the book, but that's a minor and pedantic thing. One of the things that really disheartened me is I discovered that this guy who writes harem fiction is like all in the 4K, is in the 4-digit rank of books on Amazon. And it's like, okay. Gundam narrative was a letdown. Maybe. Um, I don't know. Like Japanese write science fiction differently from Westerners, and it's I've like Gundam Unicorn was kind of a letdown because it kind of got confusing to me, and I just didn't care. Double O didn't work because the characterization was utter garbage. Even though like all the character stuff was there, like it had this great stuff with Graham and all the and Setsuna and Lock on Stratos and his twin and all the other stuff. But then like it never quite went where you wanted it to go. And it was like there's this one scene where like the woman is the princess they've got running around is like playing piano and they're like, yes, your songs can reach them, and it's like he's half a world away, like this isn't gonna work, like, and then of course it works and it's like, oh, but the thing is that stuff, it removes a lot of weight from what I read or watch or whatever, just because it's like, oh, it's a moving scene. It's like that's not good enough. It's not about the moving scenes. It's about whether or not um, this is helping or against the suspicion of disbelief. Like it's like us keep all everyone's things together. It would have been worked better if it's like, oh man, morale's down. Everyone's just about to panic. Let's have a sing along, kids. You know, like that's a thing that happens. You know, getting the kids to do something else while something horrible happens is a perfectly legitimate strategy. Um, but they just don't do it. They failed to go with Unicorn's conclusion. I guess I never got that far. Uh, by and large, I avoid TV and movies, prefer video games. I can see that. The thing is, I can work while I can write while I watch stuff. So, Imp Reb says, Gundam Seed, not Destiny, is my greatest pleasure. Is my guilty pleasure. Oh, excuse me. Um, I can see that. I never watched Gundam Seed. There's Gundam Wing, which is probably the best of the Gundams. And then there's things like Iron Blooded Orphans, Unicorn, the redo they're doing of the original series, characters like going into Char Noble's backstory, that sort of thing. And then there's things like Thunderbolt, which are just excellent, excellent series. But then there's things like before Zeta, that weird robot fighting one, which was okay, but it still gave us Burning Finger, which is kind of more super robotish than it is Gundam. Um, honestly, I kind of want to get into reading more Japanese novels, but I've been handling my time poorly, and I need to, fix that. Um, so hasn't responded to anything. Whatever. Um, honestly, it's as we go on, like I am of the opinion, as strange as this might be to say, G Gundam is meant to be super robot. That sounds about right. Um, is that I kind of view us going into a golden age of sorts for writing, if we're not in one already. But not like, I guess golden age isn't what we're working for, because like back in the time of Robert E. Howard, Lovecraft, and all those guys, that was a golden age. I mean, like maybe we're in an age of heroes. I don't know what to call it. It's like pre-golden age. Castelli has a murder mystery set in Japan. Any good? Yes, yes. The Seven Faces of Death, or whatever it's called, is a very good novel. Um, I kind of wish him and the guy who was writing some young adult novels did more work with them, but whatever. Uh, it's one of those things where it's like the charisma checks weren't quite there. IBO is probably the best universe besides Thunderbolt universe. IBO. What was I talking about? Seven Faith. Before the Seven Faiths of Death, I was talking about Japanese light novels. I've been reading out some Japanese light novels, and they're just most like Goblin Slayer's good. But then there's things like Rising of a Shield Hero, which just isn't good. Um, what was I talking about? This is important. Was it important? It must not. Oh yeah, Golden Age. So like before we get into the real Golden Age of the pulps, we have things like Hope Hodgson's The Nightlands. We have like the beginnings of Lovecraft. We have Dunsany and McDonald and all those guys, and it was really good stuff. It's fine, man. IBO Best Universe besides Thunderbolt UC Timeline. Oh, the Universal Century. Oh, right. I remember the Universal Century now. It was basically Double O back in the day. Anyway, where like you have these guys who were pretty good, and they had like super amounts of like uh, references and influence on the next generations. But William Poe Hodgson died young. Dunsany was very popular in his day, but is ultimately mostly forgotten by people, normies who don't seek the deeper knowledge and magic within writing. MacDonald still remembered, but weirdly his like stupid dramas do better than like some of his fantasy stuff, which I think is just a shame. Fantasies is an amazing book. And Curdy and the Goblins and all the Princess and the Goblins are also fun reads, even though I was way above their age limit. He still put a lot of effort into the writing, though, and it's still pretty good. And I think what we're going into is going to be more of a sort of a development time. Um, where like we're basically writing down things, developing things that our ancestors knew all the time, but wasn't passed on to us. Or new ideas came in that drowned out the really good old ideas. And, I'm hoping that we can start to create new genres, new ideas, new developments that even if, people like me and other things are forgotten, we still have enough of a influence, just like in the side business, that it comes down to it. It's one of the things why I'm bothered by everything being online, because that means that one, if those servers go down, that means that my books are just kind of lost. It's like it's it. That's it. Um, you know, there's no libraries that carry my book. There's nothing. There's just nothing. And it's one of those things where it's just like it kind of sucks. Uh, Not that I think it'll go down, but I'm saying in a worst case scenario. But also, like, what happens when I die and I stop trying to promote things? Like this is, like, will people find my weird blog posts about writing? Will the books I write be remembered? And it's just something that it's like, who cares? Um, Pursuing eternal glory outside of heaven is really just not um, is not something you can really live for. Um, you know, I don't want to live for money, but it's like I kind of need money to live, don't I? And while somebody might be crying on the inside while on their jet ski, at least they're smiling on the outside. Um, let's see here. Let's see some comments. Bradford Walker, Japan's light novel has to do with trend chasing. That is true. Since it's a feeder for manga and anime, it's no surprise a lot of trash anime comes from that. Absolutely. I don't actually know how these things get, like, it's like this. We know who makes the trashy movies and stuff here. We know what goes on in Hollywood. I have no idea what goes on in Japan. Dude, this terrible light novel called In Another World with My Cell Phone is super popular. Or Master of Ragnarok is super popular. And then they spend like $1 million on it, and then it's not popular. It's not even like Dark Phoenix was considered one of the best, I'm told anyway, excuse me, was told one of the best like comic book storylines for X-Men. It is tanking. It is getting sunk like some sort of Hindenburg Titanic love child, and then it's like, um, yeah, here's Master of Ragnarok. We're only going to animate it at like one frame every, fifth of a second if we're lucky. It's going to be, nothing's going to be on model. It's like, ugh, they paid for that. And then there's Sick Transit Gloria Mundi. The world's glory is passing. Is that right? But let's see here. Thus passes the glory of the world. That's right. That's because that X-Men movie is incompetently made woke trash. I don't doubt it. AOT is stupidly good now in the manga. I don't know what AOT is, man. I'm sorry. Playing The Last Atelier, New Alchemist Otome, full of fluffy and engaging, scratching my knee for interesting characters and progression. I do like playing video games while listening to things. He also says, yes, we're in an age where institutional knowledge is evaporating. Absolutely. People are like, yeah, Johnny's illiterate. But the thing is that, like, Johnny was taught by somebody, and you didn't want to beat Johnny enough so that he becomes illiterate. It's one of those things where it's like the problem is with the kid not wanting to learn, but the problem is also with like the teachers and the parents and stuff like that not making Johnny. It's with the fact that they changed the standards so that they want the new hotness and not the old standard stuff that everyone was taught on. Everyone learned rhetoric and all this stuff like from Aristotle and the Greeks and the Romans, and it's like, yeah, learn that history, but then like people just forgot it. It's one of those things I have to keep reminding myself. The boomers were better educated than I was. That's bad because they didn't keep it up. And the glories of the world. Attack on Titan. Ah, yes. Don't remind me of Claymore never getting Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood treatment. AOT is Attack on Titan. So Claymore was like the edgy show that appeared during my high school years. And even though there was a lot of interest on it, there wasn't any interest outside of the edge. And I do know it had something to it, but it was just kind of an edgier Hellsing because most of the characters were women, demon women, but silver-eyed witches. But still, that's not something I really worry about. So we're in this age where it's like things are starting to get real good. The war never ends. The ride never ends. The war never ends. Ride the damn tiger. But we're setting it up so that what do we got? What do we got? What do we got? Who's getting famous? Like Voxday mentioned that there might be an outlet in Alibaba. The problem is that I write explicitly Christian fiction with Christian themes in them. The Communist Party isn't exactly friendly to that. Would they allow me to run on their state-run Amazon? My books. Will they kind of just cordon us off to our own little area? They almost certainly will. Who the heck is Manja's Phoenix? I don't know, man. I don't even remember who's playing what. I have no interest in watching it. I don't think I've watched a full X-Men movie since Wolverine, and I didn't watch a full one since like the third X-Men film, the original one. I'm just not interested in that stuff. Didn't see Days of Future Past. Didn't see the one with the. I didn't see Apocalypse, which is them trying to do Avengers without building up to it. It's like we see that. What is it? Just checking my microphone, so excuse me. Okay, yeah, it's the one connected to my laptop. But what's wrong one? It's like the idea of being better educated did not prevent the boomers from falling and dragging Western world with them. Yeah, but it's what I'm trying to say is that they had better tools than we did. I'm really big on boomer hate, but I've realized over time that it's like, you know, they were raised in padded cribs in the strongest society in the world. That breeds weakness. And while, it will be required of them, it's one of those things I shouldn't hate them for, like I tend to. Partially because, I do have a lot of problems with my own father. I have to worry about certain things like inheritances, his declining health and all that jazz. And it's like, okay, don't want to fight you. Don't want to do this. Don't want to do that. And it's like, it's easier to blame the generation than it is to blame the person. But it doesn't matter. Like I still have responsibilities and duties and all that jazz, and I have to fulfill them. Just like they refuse to fulfill theirs. They had the knowledge and rhetoric. We don't. We have to find them again. I've got Cicero's On Duties in my bookshelf, and I plan on reading it sometime. Um, the choices we have before us are pretty simple. Like, we can keep developing these things that have shown up. We can keep rebuking the devil and all that jazz, or we can just let things fall more and just keep going down, down, down. Baby, are you down, 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 down? So on and so forth. Excuse me. And it just kind of it can spiral, and you don't want to spiral. You want to keep above it all. Always be the same man. I don't really care for most of what uh, some are saying the actual fail led to the boomers. Yes, but also no. But also yes, but also no. It's one of those things where um, enough of things were conflicted that like it wasn't on the Greatest Generation's watch that everything started to decline in full. By the time they're hitting like 50s and 60s and all that jazz, um, it's they were starting like in age. The Greatest Generation was already starting to retire. They were starting to give it up. The Silent Generation was still leading a lot of the stuff, like John McCain, and starting to come into power. So it's like it's one of those things. Sure, the Boomers themselves were products, but they were also not willing to be any different from what they were made to be. As I know it sounds strange, but it's like the millennials were made to be another boomers, essentially. Gen X was meant to be another boomers. But the thing is, the boomers didn't give Gen X what their inheritance was. The millennials won't get it. Some Gen Xers might see it. But the Gen Z, oh, who even knows with those guys? They're crazy. But they'll be okay. Like, it's one of those things where it's like they'll be okay, and I don't want to like break anyone's morale or anything like that. But it's like, what do I do with this? What do I do now? Like this stuff that depresses me is probably one of those things I should just give up and give to God. In fact, I know I should. It is improper to worry about these things like literature, whether or not I'll get popular or anything like that, and just put my head down and work until it happens or something else happens. Um, you know, Phoenix looks dumb. It looks like a dumb movie. The only movie I kind of want to see is The Inhumans, which was the first time I saw a trailer, a horror film set with mutant powers in an asylum. Excellent. But then it's like now they're changing it. And it's like, what do I do with it? Like we live in an age where Galaxy's Edge is real, but Star Wars kind of went downhill. Okay, fine. Galaxy's Edge is great. Bye, Galaxy's Edge. Gundam's pretty much moving from strength to strength in this generation currently. Hey, if you like Gundam, if you want a Gundam novelization that isn't hot translated garbage, buy Combat Frame Exceed. Because Combat Frame Exceed is exactly what it is and what it needs to be. It's a great novel. If you want noir, there's always Jim Butcher, and there's always the good Larry Correa. We got John C. Wright writing novels, and we can look back and read all the greatness that has ever been worth remembering. And we can ignore those things that has been forgotten. Yep, Gundam is getting better. Oh yeah, and we're moving from strength to strength ourselves. The key is though is that as these things go on, we gotta try and mm, we gotta try and just get things going. We got to work together, talk together. That's why I do this live stream, and it's why I invite people on all the time. Brian Niemeier is probably busy. Something's probably happened, and he can't come in. Hey, that's okay. I don't mind, man. You do you. Bradford Walker's going to come in sometime, or other people who want to promote their book are going to come in. Some people made themselves my enemy. I'm not going to mention who they are, but they're not going to come in on the stream again. Sorry, friendo. I'll give you another chance later on. But until that chance comes up, I'm just going to ignore you, like blocked me for not even talking to you, just being a friend of a friend. We gotta push on beyond this stuff and either overcome or succumb. And I think we can overcome. Let's see here. What an odd parable. Feast day of receiving the tablets has just concluded here in Israel. The slave being the counterbalance to the Israel sleeping on the night before. Okay. Um, you know, uh, Owen Benjamin is going on about morale. Vox is going on about morale, and I should too. Like, we can do this. I know I can outright any of their best, and we've got John C. Wright and Brian Niemeier and all the other Superversives and the Gundam for Us and the Paul Perev and Larry Correa, on our side as well. And it's like it's one of those things. Larry Correa is going to get remembered. His books are going to be passed on. I see no reason that we should worry about those who actively hate the very idea of being passed on. Either way, do check out Brian Niemeier's Combat Frame XC Coalition Year 40. It is in the doobly-doo below, along with the Superversive blog, my personal blog, which I don't update like I should, Chic of Mars, and my Fiverr thing. Yeah, not much to it. Thank you all for joining. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your weekends. You're all wonderful. Bye.